Yeah. Yeah, shark in the gun, got the knowledge for the college. Football show breaks down the odds like scholars. 3-unit bangers, stacking cheddar like towers. Ride the wave to fame, flex in the midnight hours. 9 words of lifestyle, spitting flames, no pity. Dominate the board like kings, ruling the city. Sports, gamble, and hustle, money moves so gritty. Cashing tickets every Friday, life looking pretty. Ride the wave, feel the rush, hit your dame. Shark in the gun, setting fire to the name. 3-unit banging, stacking chips, no shame. Friday night sports kings, claiming that fame. Analyze stats, break bread, no sweat. 3-point spreads, risk life, major bet. Cash in pockets, feel...
On a suddenly not so casual Friday in November, it is CFB Knowledge for College Week 13, the Shark and the Gun. Friday, November 22nd, 2024, the last Friday show of the year. We will be recording next week on Wednesday night. The season has flown by. We are live on Sharky Waters Nation and the GunzPicks channel. Jump in the chat, drop your plays. We will interact with you. GunzPicks, what's going on, brother?
I know this season's going way too fast, man. College football's going to be ending. I mean, we're going to get into college football players. We're going to talk about bowl season soon enough here. But, man, I'm excited for the slate today. This is called Unload the Clip Week. I mean, we got the data, we got the stats, and we are just absolutely dominating college football left and right. And I'm ready to get into this slate. Shark, let's give it to him.
Speaking of unloading the clip, high noon tomorrow, Saturday it will be. Saturdays are for sending it. Biggest game of the year so far. Ohio State versus undefeated Indiana in Columbus, Ohio. The Gun's been buying Kurt Signetti all year. He has the hat. He loves Indiana. This week he likes Ohio State. GunzPicks opening the broadcast with an official Ohio State -10.
Yeah, this hurts my heart, Kurt, but I got to fade you this weekend. I think you're going to come down to earth, man. This Hoosier team is way too hot. They're 10-0 on the year, but they're going against an Ohio State team that is 9-1 in the year. That only loss was on the road versus Oregon. But when you look at Indiana's offense, they did well the first 7 games, putting up over 400 yards of total offense in that span. But look at what happened to Indiana's offense in the last 3 games. They came down to earth. They put up 312 yards of total offense versus Washington, 385 yards versus Michigan State, and then against Michigan, 246 yards of total offense. So you have this offense coming back down to earth. And guess what? They're facing an Ohio State defense that is one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country. They're first in opposing points per game, only giving up 10.3 points per game. Second in opposing yards per game. Fourth in opposing yards per carry and yards per game. Fifth in opposing pass yards per game. I could keep going on. This team is electric on the defensive side of the ball. Ohio State holds opponents to 126 yards below their season average and 160 yards below their season average at home. So from a comparison standpoint, I brought up Michigan because Michigan is kind of the barometer when you look at the Hoosiers. Michigan held them to 20 points and 246 yards of total offense, which is 100 yards below Indiana's season average this season. Michigan is ranked 31st in defensive yards per game and 45th in opposing scoring. So that gives you a barometer that there is going to be a step in class when you're facing this Ohio State defense. And Indiana, top 5 rushing defense, given up offensive production, but has given up production in the passing game. That's their weak point. Ranked 80th in pass completion percentage and 27th in opposing pass yards per game. That was against a weak schedule matter. But when you look at Ohio State's offense, they can beat you in the run. They can beat you in the pass. They're ranked 5th in pass completion rate, 5th in passing yards per play, and 27th in the country in passing yards per game. And both teams are great statistically, have dominated in most of their games. However, Ohio State has faced a much tougher schedule this season. Ohio State has faced the 9th toughest schedule in the country, where you have Indiana has faced the 62nd toughest schedule in the country. High indicators here when you look at this line too, above double-digit favorite versus the number 5 team in the country here, folks, versus the number 2. Why is it so high? Well, because Ohio State is the better team. I have Ohio State ranked number 1 in the country in my power rankings. So give me Ohio State here, -10 as the play.
You know who I don't have ranked number 1 in the country in my power rankings? Liberty. And my first official play on this Saturday. We're going 1 o'clock, going to Lynchburg. We're taking a road team, Western Kentucky, at plus 1.5. And truthfully, you can make a significant argument Western Kentucky should be favored in this game. This is also just a great statistical buy low on Western Kentucky here in Week 13. Coming into this game, 0-3 ATS last 3. Really bottomed out last week at home in a horribly played game, 12-7 loss against La Tech. We love that horrible game because we had the under in that game correctly, and it went under by about 30 points. But nonetheless, the point still stands. Western Kentucky bottomed out last week, and this is where they will bounce back. And as I mentioned, Liberty is not the Liberty of yesteryear. This team is the absolute highest level of fool's gold, maybe across all of mid-major college football this season. 7-2 straight up, 2-7 ATS. And we faded them last week correctly. UMass at home plus 14.5. UMass almost won that game outright. 1 point loss in overtime. And if you really go through Liberty in recent history went to overtime with Florida International, who's really poor, lost outright to Kennesaw State as a 27.5-point favorite, lost to Jacksonville State, and did blow out Middle Tennessee State in their only representative effort in recent history. This Liberty team has it coming, an emphatic outright loss. And final point on this game, these teams did play last year. Liberty on the road at WKU, 42-29. Liberty, key point there, favored on the road, minus 3.5. And this did open at Western Kentucky, minus 1.5 road, indicating books expect revenge from Western Kentucky and a 10-point outright win. Buy it, live it, love it, and let's dominate. Guns staying big-time football here on this week 13, Saturday, 3:30 in Tempe, Arizona. Arizona State laying 3 points to BYU, a BYU team that was running a clean sheet until last week, taking a home loss. And the Gun is not expecting a bounce back. GunzPicks, ASU -3, official.
Yeah, I was waiting for the luck to run out on the BYU Cougars, and I think now it has, coming off that loss versus Kansas last week. And then they have to go take a road trip to Arizona State here at Mountain America Stadium in Tempe, Arizona. You have an Arizona State team that is playing well above their pay grade, especially with the projections that came out from the books earlier in the year. 8-2 on the year with a plus 8-point differential, plus 61 net yard average, and they're going against a BYU team that is plus 12-point differential, plus 82 net yard average. Arizona State, you know what they're going to do. They're going to try to run the ball versus this BYU team. They're 17th in rush play percentage, 12th in rush yards per game. And then Arizona State at home, they average 235 rushing yards per game at 5.3 yards per carry this season. Then they're going against a BYU defense that is 66 in opposing rush yards per carry, 57th in opposing rush yards per game. They've been gashed, though, versus conference opponents. They gave up 5.3 yards per carry to Kansas State at home, 7.3 yards per carry versus Oklahoma State, and 6.2 yards per carry versus UCF. Arizona State has been a great team against the spread this season. There's no question about it. They're 8-2 ATS overall this year and 5-0 ATS at home. Arizona State is also 5-0 ATS as a favorite this year, which they're sitting here as a favorite here now. And BYU was a strong covering team, but I think the magic has left the building for the Cougars. They have regressed in the last 4 games. They're 1-3 ATS in the last 4. And BYU is coming back down to earth after a strong start to the year. They weren't expected to win this many games, but they're sitting here now with playoff implications on the line. And guess who's sitting in front of them? An Arizona State team that is playing exceptional ball. They run the ball well, which plays right into what BYU cannot defend. There's a reason why Arizona State, a lower-ranked team, is favored versus a higher-ranked team in the Cougars. Give me Arizona State here, -3 as the play.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I've seen sharp people all across gambling Twitter, gambling X, I should say, taking this pick this week, and it just seems like BYU was getting away with it all year. A lot of fluky wins. It's come to a halt, and they got officially on Arizona at -3. My next play, we're going MAC football. The only MAC game played on Saturday this week. Actually, all the other games are played midweek in this late season calendar. MACtion midweek. But I found the only one on Saturday, and I do like the over in this game. Bowling Green at Ball State, over 56.5. Great buy low for both teams in this spot, particularly Bowling Green. Bowling Green has one of their best teams in years. They can score the football, and they are actually 1-5 versus the over in conference play. Key point, they're playing very good defense at home. Road conference games, they are 1-1 versus the over. They went over emphatically week 9 at Toledo, 41-26. The only under in this spot on the road at Akron early season in week 6 did go under 48.5, 707 total yards, 27-20, right there. So the point is, they should be expecting upward momentum at this point, 1-5 in their calendar against MAC opponents. And Ball State is really the gift that keeps on giving to the overs this year. Ball State is 5-1 versus the over in MAC play. They play absolutely no defense. I took a home over they had earlier this year against Kent State. There was 72 points in the game. And this is a great buy low off of last year's total. Go back to last year, November 1st, 2023. Ball State rode at Bowling Green, 24-21. Bowling Green over 39.5. And now this opened at 57. That is a huge line gap, indicating another game played wide open in the MAC, the only one at 2 o'clock on this Saturday. We expect 75 points in this game on the average by the over in this game, and let's dominate. 5 o'clock Sunbelt football. Guns going back to old reliable. No, that is not Notre Dame, although that is foreshadowing to another play on this broadcast. That is Louisiana, the old ULL Ragin' Cajuns at home again in conference play, laying yet another heavy number. The gun has noticed Louisiana, -10.
Yeah, I mean, you're on the MAC, and that just tickles my soul because I'm 5-2 this week on the MAC games. But let's talk about a little bit of Fun Belt, the Sun Belt at Cajun Field in Lafayette, Louisiana at 5 p.m. You have a ULL team that is 8-2 on the year. They're a strong team. They're off a loss, though, versus South Alabama, but they have a plus 12-point differential, plus 116 net yard average. And then you have a Troy team that is kind of heating up a little bit, but they're off back-to-back wins, but they're only 3-7 on the year with a minus 4-point differential, minus 10 net yard average. But Troy, when they get on the road, they regress. Troy on the road this season is 1-4 straight up, minus 10-point differential, minus 70 net yard average on the year. And ULL, what do they want to do? They're a run-oriented team. They average 5.4 yards per carry. That is 12th in the country. 24th in rushing yards per game as well. Then you have Troy, vulnerable against the run this season. If you look at their statistics, they give up 4.7 yards per carry. That ranks them 93rd in the country in that statistic, and also 79th in the country in opposing rush yards per game. Now, Troy has struggled scoring, ranked 99th in the country in offensive scoring. They only average 21.8 points per game. They give up 28.7 points per game, which ranks them 82nd in the country. So on both sides of the ball with Troy, they can't score, and they give up a lot of points. And, of course, Louisiana can put up the points. They're ranked 25th in the country in scoring, putting up 33.2 points per game overall. But at home, they get even better. They put up 37 points per game at home. Also, revenge factor, or a pound of flesh game. We've been taking advantage of these all season long, and by God, let's do it one more time with Louisiana. They lost twice to Troy, including last season, 31-24. They were 16-point dogs last season on the road. Now they're getting back home, and they're a double-digit favorite at home. That is a humongous line swing that we like to take advantage here on the Knowledge for College show. Then you have Louisiana that's coming off a loss, like I said, to South Alabama last week. But when they come off a loss, they come out stronger than ever. They're 6-1 ATS off a loss dating back to last season. Then Troy on the other side, 1-3 ATS this season as a double-digit dog, losing by an average of 18.8 points per game in that sample size. This is what I call a slam spot for Louisiana. They are a good conference team. They can run the ball versus a bad conference opponent who struggles stopping the run. This is a revenge angle. Line functionality, as we say, is included in this one. All boxes checked. This is my biggest play of the week. Give me Louisiana -10 as the play.
Yeah, great stuff there. And speaking of line functionality, I'm really honed in on totals this week. For whatever reason, the lines are really speaking to me. And we're going to more Sunbelt football. 2:30 in Boone, North Carolina. Great looking stadium there in the mountains in North Carolina. Taking the over between James Madison and App State at 60.5 early week. That is down to 58.5. And I think that's maybe weather, maybe syndicates. I have no idea. Please bet it down, and we'll take the over. And this is very similar to my previous total. A beautiful statistical buy low on both. JMU is 1-5 versus the over in Sunbelt play. But key point, mostly because they're playing far inferior competition and they have a very good defense, more often than not in their home stadium, not on the road. So they started 0-5. Last week, they finally went over at Old Dominion emphatically, 35-32 over 50.5. And I think when you look at that statistical flow, it will continue this week in a road back-to-back sequence. And you look at App State uncannily is 0-3 versus the over at home in conference. This is an App State team that plays a wide open style of ball. This is one of the biggest statistical outliers I have found this season in college football. This 0-3 sample features a game against South Alabama, Thursday Night Football Week 4. It went under 62.5 precisely by a half point, 48-14, 859 yards in that game, 50 first downs, and it still went under. Slightly later on, Georgia State, 33-26, under 59.5, another hook under, 865 yards, 45 first downs. And most recently, Week 10 versus Old Dominion, 28-20 final, under 58.5. Game had 894 yards. ODU had 498 alone and 4 turnovers. JMU's coming up in the totals in conference. App State is a sustained outlier at this point. You want to buy this over. And final point on this, these teams did play last year. Significant under at JMU, 26-23, 56.5. Outlierish game. 10-5 entering the fourth quarter. 25 fourth quarter points. And we see this oftentimes in other sports, but football as well. No points in the game, and then all of a sudden they explode in the fourth quarter. The following year, the same game flow does repeat. Have this game graded at 65 points at 2:30 in Boone, North Carolina. Buy the over, and let's dominate. Going back to the gun, the hat does serve more purpose than just fandom on this Week 13. Notre Dame buy hat. Buy hat is engaged. You're a fan, and you're buying them this week at -14.
Yeah, Christmas comes early, and I tell you what the Christmas present is. Just bet Notre Dame when they're playing in the Shamrock Series, and we got a good one here with Army versus Notre Dame. Getting ahead of myself here a couple weeks with Yankee Stadium, Bronx, New York, on a neutral field, and you have a Notre Dame team that is 9-1 on the year with playoff implications on the line, plus 27 point differential, plus 139 net yard average. They're going against an Army team that's undefeated too. 9-0 on the year with a plus 25 point differential, plus 146 net yard average. Now, Army is undefeated. I get that completely. But when you look at the teams that they played, it's a little bit misleading. They faced the 121st toughest schedule in the country, and Notre Dame has similar numbers to Army this year if you look at all the statistics. But the difference is Notre Dame has faced the 32nd toughest schedule in the country, and Notre Dame has already played a similar type of team in Army. They played Navy in October. The line in that one was 13.5 for Navy. So why is the line higher now? Well, it's because they saw what Notre Dame did to a triple option on a neutral field. Notre Dame won that game 51-14 with plus 156 net yards in that game and a +6 turnover ratio. And like I said, this is the Shamrock Series. This is the special uniforms come out. Look good, feel good, play good, and it has worked to Notre Dame's favor in this game. In those games, dating back to I think it's 2010 at this point, they're 12-0 straight up, 9-3 ATS in the Shamrock Series games, winning by an average of 22.4 points per game. Also, look at Notre Dame, 5-2 ATS. That's a double-digit favorite. And guess what? The only 2 non-covers were against MAC teams. We already talked about the MAC and how we love the MAC. Well, they didn't cover against Miami, Ohio. They didn't cover against NIU. You know what happened with NIU. I digress. This is, by the way, the first time that Army has been a dog all season long, and they're a double-digit dog. This is a slam spot for Notre Dame on a neutral field. We've already seen this movie play out when we saw the game in October versus Navy, and now the line is bigger with Army. I thought Army was a good team. Well, the books don't think so, and I agree with them here. Give me Notre Dame minus 14 as the play.
Yeah, really just a classic line read, just an incredibly strong spot. And as guys mentioned, Notre Dame showing massive upward movement off early season flounders against the MAC. This is not the MAC. It's an opportunity to dominate. Another play from me here, going to Boca Raton, Florida, taking a road team, taking Charlotte, the 49ers, at -3. Took them incorrectly last week, really staying the course of action here. I think a much better spot ultimately. Last week, they got absolutely hammered, albeit mostly in the third and fourth quarter against South Florida at home. Charlotte has underperformed all year in their home stadium in conference. Much better on the road. 2-1 ATS road in conference. And as I mentioned, coming off a blowout last week, 2 consecutive blowouts. 34-3 against Tulane, 59-24 against USF. 4 consecutive outright losses. Great buy low. And as I mentioned, returning to where they perform well on the road. And it's a great spot to fade Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic is 2-8. They're cratering down. They just lost at Temple on the road in overtime. Just fired their coach. I know people like the coach change, jump, this, and that. You need to have talent on your roster. And I'm seeing all sorts of speculation regarding this. I'm just going to say I don't really think it matters in this particular game. I think the FAU bounce back is far more authentic. And I think even more specifically within this matchup, this is a double revenge game for Charlotte, having gotten pretty much blown out the last 2 years against Florida Atlantic. 2 years ago in Boca Raton, Florida Atlantic 43-13, just an absolute domination, -7.5 home team. Last year, still a Florida Atlantic road line, -4.5 at Charlotte, albeit a tighter one. Another blowout, 38-16. Game was tight, though. Charlotte actually had 22 first downs in the game versus only 21. So Charlotte is tightening it up. And now you see the classic strength in reversal and line strength. Home dog Charlotte, now road favorite Charlotte. Books love Charlotte. We like the bounce back. Great environmental analysis. I have Charlotte to win this game by 12 points on the number. And let's dominate. Final play from the gun as we're ripping through this card, week 13, 24 minutes in the books. We appreciate you guys on this Friday night. Hope you're having a great night. Get those libations, that workout. All love and respect. 7 o'clock, Sun Belt football. Texas State laying a hefty 20 points at home in San Marcos, Texas to Georgia State. Georgia State is terrible in conference. Texas State is upstart. The gun has noticed. Texas State -20 official.
It's funny because I'm looking at my write-up for Texas State, and right below that is Charlotte -2.5. I should have put that on the card, but I digress. I'm here to talk about Texas State versus Georgia State in Bobcat Stadium, San Marcos, Texas. 7 p.m. is the kick on this one. You have a Georgia State team that is, well, one of the worst teams in college football right now. They've lost 7 straight. They're 2-8 on the year with a -10 point differential, -35 net yard average. They're going against a Texas State team that is heating up late. They're off 2 blowout wins, and they're 6-4 in the year with a +16 point differential, +141 net yard average. And when you look at the Texas State Bobcats, explosive offense is how to describe them. They're 15th in offensive scoring, 6th in offensive yards per game, and they're 11th in yards per play. And Texas State is ranked 14th in rushing offense, 8th in pass completion percentage, 16th in passing yards per play, and 33rd in passing yards per game. So what I'm telling you is it's a good offense, all right? And they're going against a Georgia State defense that's one of the worst in college football. They're 108th in opposing scoring, giving up 32.6 points per game. They're 103rd in opposing yards per game, 109th in opposing yards per play. And when you look at the offensive side for Georgia State, they are a pass-oriented offense. They're 10th in pass play percentage, 14th in passing attempts per game. But they're going to get to Texas State defense that really plays into what the strength of that defense does, because they're 21st in passing yards per play and 17th in opposing pass yards per game. So when you look at the Texas State defense, they're weaker against the run, but they're playing a pass-oriented team, so that is okay with me. Texas State has been great at home this season as well. +21 point differential, +182 net yard average at home, 3-2 straight up in ATS versus FBS opponents at home. And their losses were credible. I talked about how good Louisiana was previously in my other cap, and they played Arizona State. Talked about how good they are. Those were their 2 losses at home. In their wins at home this season, when they are playing inferior opponents, they have a plus 42 point differential versus those teams. This team does not just win close, they blow out their opponents at home. Then you got to look at Georgia State. 0-5 straight up in ATS on the road this season. They lose by an average of 16 points per game. And then you have Texas State, 4-1-1 ATS as double-digit favorite this season. Texas State should roll this team. And the line is telling you that. Texas State is going to heat up at the back end of the season going into the bowls. Give me Texas State here, minus 20 as the play.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And staying Sunbelt, my final play of this week 13, taking the under between ULM, the Warhawks, and Arkansas State at 52.5. And I could go into a ton of detailed analysis on this. We want to get you guys in and out of the door in 30 minutes. The fastest college football show on the internet, CFB Knowledge for College. Ultimately, for anybody who follows Sunbelt football historically, I can't say I did until the last 5 years. But in those 5 years, I did really pick up on the fact that ULM and Arkansas State don't historically play a lot of defense. A lot of points with these teams over the last 5 years. Track meet football. This is different this year. Both teams are playing a lot more defense, and they're certainly not scoring the ball at that type of rate. And this is a rematch of a game played last year in Week 9, October 28, 2023. Arkansas State at ULM over 55.5. Key point in that game, 905 yards. Could have gone even further over 55.5. And now books see that. And they're moving it down to 52.5 at open. Notable line move here. It is line functionality in the Sun Belt. I have this game to be a real tight one, and other databases do agree with this analysis. 49 points on the average. Buy it at 3 o'clock. ULM, Arkansas State, under 52.5. That's the show for this week. The last Friday regular season show of the season. We will be back live, I believe, next Wednesday night. And then as bowl season develops and the first playoff really in CFB history, I cannot be more excited for those shows all the way through January the 20th, 2025. 5 top plays from each of us. Western Kentucky, plus 1.5 for me. Bowling Green, Ball State, over 56.5. JMU, App State, over 60.5. Charlotte, minus 3. ULM, Ark State, under 52.5. The gun at high noon. Ohio State, lay down the hammer at home, minus 10. ASU, contrarian special, 330, minus 3. Louisiana, old reliable, minus 10. Notre Dame, old reliable, again, minus 14. Texas State, minus 20. It is CFB Knowledge for College, Week 13, the Shark and the Gun. We hope you guys have a beautiful weekend. Let's cash these tickets. Guns, a pleasure as always. Close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, this is a pre-record this time, so we can't get into the chat. But please like and subscribe to the to this video. If you're watching on the Shark and Waters Nation channel, you watch it on the GunzPicks channel. That is what it gets in the algorithm. And get in the comments section. I'll answer the comments if you throw them in there. I got my notifications on, so do that as well. And yeah, check us out live show on Sunday with the extra points. With Shark, myself, and the Odds Fellow, the trio of all trios, the sharpest information on the planet. Please join us for that at 10:30 a.m. East. But that's going to do it here for Knowledge for College. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And as always, hello, let's keep dancing. Yeah, bang.